All right, folks, what we're going to talk about today is taking the first steps. Taking the first steps. Now, Brene Brown wrote, "The courage to be vulnerable is not about winning or losing. It's about the courage to show up when you can't predict or even control the outcome." This is Carlene Johnson's story. Let's meet her. My guest today is my friend Carlene Johnson. She is an Air Force combat veteran. She was deployed during one of the Desert Storm Shield period of time. Today, she is a conscientious realtor. She is a realist. She is a certified divorce real estate expert. And she is the president of the Houston chapter of the Veterans Association for Real Estate Professionals. This is one extraordinarily accomplished woman. Let's meet her now. Carlene, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Well, this is our pleasure. One more thing about Carlene, she is one of the contributing authors to my upcoming book, Business Secrets from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. And this book will be available in a pre-order special on March 29. Remember that date, mark it down, March 29. Now, this is a story by veterans, by spouses, by parents, and supporters. This is their story in their words. You want this book. So, Carlene, you told me that you only considered joining the Air Force and no other branch. What led to
that? I cannot say there was any specific thing that led to it. It was just, I was there. Just the concept. I guess in high school, one of the things was we would have recruiters come to the school from the different branches. And I think perhaps the fact that the Air Force just looked the way I wanted to look may have been it. But at the time when I walked into the recruiter's office, it was just to pass the time. It was to pass the time. I had not had any intention of joining the military. It was just, let me just pass the time, see what they have to say. But the Air Force was the only choice. I never considered going to listen to any other branch. It was just, that was the branch that seemed to call to me.
Excellent. Let's step back for a second. Now, your early life story was pretty interesting. Would you share some of
that? I was born in Jamaica, West Indies. And we migrated here when I was 6 years old. We came to New York, came in New York, and we stayed in New York for a few years. And my mom brought us to Houston, Texas. And that's a story that a lot of people are like, how did you all leave from New York? And how did you even find Houston? And I don't recall I think it was a employment opportunity that brought my mom here. And I've been here off and on ever since. I attended high school. Went through school here in the greater Houston area, different parts of the greater Houston area. And I've left multiple times and just end up coming back here to Houston. And I graduated from Stratford Senior High School in Spring Branch and was in the delayed entry program for the military for a year. I signed up for the military at the age of 17, still a junior in high school. Once I went in the recruiter's office, it appealed to me because of travel and education. And so I enlisted. My mom signed off allowing me to sign up. And I was in the delayed entry program for a year. I graduated high school in June the following year and left for basic training in August of that same year. So
I think I was the same way. Graduated in June and left in August. Down to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio.
Yes,
I think we
yes,
all
yes.
go there.
Yeah.
Now, this was interesting when I was reading your story. You said most Air Force recruits, when they go in, they have a job. They know this is what your job's going to be if you don't do anything stupid. This is what your job's going to be.
Yeah.
You didn't have that. What
No.
happened?
I am Jamaican. I was not a US citizen. And the fact that I was not a US citizen meant that my security clearance was considered a general security clearance. And so that limited quite a bit the positions I could fill within the military, especially within the Air Force. And so when I left for basic training, I did not know what my job was going to be. And even when basic training, after my 6 weeks were up, I was there for another, I think it was about 2 months,
Really?
because they could not find would decide where to send me. So it was, but because I wasn't a US citizen, and at the time, your first enlistment, you did not have to be a US citizen.
Right.
But in order to re-enlist, I would have had to obtain my citizenship. So
So after all this waiting and wondering, what job did you get?
MWR, Morale, Welfare, MWRSS, Morale, Welfare, Recreation, and Services Specialist.
Mhm.
In a nutshell, that was that job entailed working at the fitness center, the dining facility, the base hotel, recreational or those types of positions did not require a security clearance. So primarily my job was, I primarily worked at the fitness center and the base hotel. Those were the main places I worked during my enlistment. But I worked with a lot of civilians because there were very few military members that were in those positions. And
Right.
so I worked with a lot of civilians during that time. And, one of the things it entailed was we would, for example, when we had, we organized the basketball tournaments, the softball tournaments, all of those things. So it was like we would draw on the softball field, we would actually draw and walk and, the chalk
Hmm.
to draw the actual outline of the actual playing field, etc. And that was my job. But
So you did a lot of
what?
the fun stuff.
Yeah, yeah. That was the okay. In context, for my job, I wore a burgundy shirt and black pants. That was my uniform for my job. Well, that was in the winter. In the summer, burgundy shirt and black shorts. So because we were in and out of the elements, etc., and we were doing, recreational things, and so I guess the comfort was, so we were viewed as, just living the good life,
I'll bet.
because we didn't have to wear uniform. Now, when we had exercise, during our exercise, we did wear our uniform, etc. But during our, day-to-day operations, that was what I wore.
Wow. But there was a lot of people looking at you and saying, how did she get this? How come she doesn't have to wear a uniform?
Yes and no. There were people that, were, um, for lack of a better word, envious
Yes.
of the fact that I did not have to wear the actual mostly BDU or blues uniform. But there were those that kind of uh, looked down on the fact that I was a military member, and that's how I dressed and what I did. So there were good things about it and there were bad things about it.
Right. Exactly. So then you get deployed. How'd your role change?
Leading to the deployment in context, we had just gotten out of an exercise. We had been in a 2-week exercise. And during exercise, usually, we're working our shift. And when our shift ends, we go home, get something to eat, get some sleep, and we're back in exercise. So we had just, I think, like 2 days, gotten out of our exercise, and there was a recall. And the recall, for those that don't know, is when one of our colleagues or military members, brother or sister, calls us and says, we need to meet at this spot, et cetera, and you call the next person, et cetera. And so when the call was received, the mindset for some of us was, we're going back in exercise. We just got out of an exercise. And so we did not know. For some of us, we didn't know what was going on because we had not been watching the news or keeping up with what. And when I joined the military, we had not been in a conflict for quite some time.
That's correct.
So the concept of participating, that we were going to actually go to war, was just not in the forefront of our mind. So when we met up where we were supposed to, that is when we were told we were being deployed to, and I was at a base that primarily the entire base was deployed. And our base made up that city. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
It was that city. Our base was that city. And so most of the base was deployed. And so we were towards the end of August, we were deployed, sent over there, and that's where I went. And that the job that I performed stateside was what I was deployed to do in the area of conflict. But in this instance, it was not just done with Air Force members, it was all branches of the military. That was my first introduction to the difference with the other branches of the military. I was used to Air Force and, and so after my deployment, put me in with all branches of the military. And I was 19 years old when I was deployed. And I was excited after I got over the initial
shock.
What?
Exactly.
It was like, this is exciting. I didn't think of it as I'm going to war. I'm being deployed. So I was very excited about it. I was, had positive thoughts about it, et cetera. And our orders put the date that we were leaving, but our return date was blank. Our return date was blank. And initially, that's no big deal. But once I got over there and reality set in, that was taxing. Not knowing, because there were times that it would be, okay, is this the week that I'm going to be able to go home? Or at least know when I'm going to be able to go home. And that uncertainty was, along with a lot of other things, that uncertainty was very stressful because the conditions there, a lot of the things that were taking place there were just overwhelming in itself. But the uncertainty of not knowing when the end, basically, with no end in sight, I ended up being there approximately 7 months. So it was a long time.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it was a long time. And when I returned to my military base, it was, keep in mind, I was not a U.S. citizen. And where I was stationed, I wanted to reenlist. In my mind, when I first enlisted, I intended to be a lifer.
Mhm.
That was I didn't get the GI Bill because I was like, I'm going to stay in here. I'm going to be a lifer. And so my intention was to get my citizenship so I could reenlist. But after serving in an area of conflict, um, the military had the ability to expedite or,
Mhm.
contribute information or get my citizenship expedited because where I was stationed, it took a year. The process to obtain citizenship took a year. And when I went and asked the powers that be to assist me, I had filled out the paperwork and everything to assist in getting it expedited. I was denied.
Really?
I was denied. They would not help me get it expedited. And so um, that hurt a lot. It hurt a lot. And so I literally tore up my citizenship paperwork
Mhm.
and said, I'm not reenlisting because if, I served my country, I served this country, and you all are not willing to do just a little bit of paperwork to help me expedite the process so that I can become a citizen and reenlist and continue. And so I tore up my paperwork and did not reenlist, decided, okay, I'm not going to reenlist in the military. However, during that time, before that time, I did end up going back in the area of conflict for approximately 3 months
Mhm.
before my enlistment ended. So I signed a 4-year contract. So during that time, I served 7 months the first time and then 3 months
3
the
months.
second time. Um, and so it was in my mind, keep in mind, I went straight from high school to the military, had never experienced the real world. And another part of my logic was, I can go in the real world and make the same money and don't have to put up with.
Yeah, the
And
ideas of
really, I
the
was right. I
mhm.
was right. I could go in the real world and make the same amount of money. However, I had to pay light. I had to pay rent. I
Buy
had to pay
food.
all the different things, food, all the different things that were a part of being in the military. In the civilian world, it's not. You have to pay for those things. And so it was a rude awakening for me
Mhm.
after I exited the military after my 4 years were up. Um, and so I exited the military in 93 and braved the civilian world for some time. And it was an adjustment in a lot of ways because my upbringing, I'm Jamaican, and so my upbringing was very strict. And the military was very strict. Um, but the civilian world is, to this day, the civilian world is different.
Very much.
Yeah, is different. And so um, there are so many things I did not know and realize that I had access to through the military as a quote unquote veteran because When I exited the military, I did not even really grasp the concept that I was a veteran because I didn't meet the picture, of a veteran.
That's right.
I'm young. I'm not a veteran.
Mhm.
I'm, that there were a lot of things
You're a
that
woman.
did not.
That doesn't
I'm a
jump into
woman.
people's minds.
Yes, to this day,
Exactly.
to this day, it still does not, the concept is even within the military community, a woman veteran is still kind of like they know it, but it's not the forefront of their mind. And so in here in Houston, we have Ellington Field. Um, and well, it was Ellington Field at the time. And I decided, okay, I'm going to join the Air National Guard. And I did. Uh, and at the time when I joined the Air National, oh, sorry, and left the military in 93. Um, to join the Guard, to get into the Guard, I had to get my citizenship. And so I obtained my citizenship in 96 and joined the Guard. Specifically, that was the reason I obtained my citizenship, was to get back into the military. Worked at Ellington Field in finance for 2 years. And basically, it was continuous. My orders just kept being extended. I worked out there full time in finance. And a position opened up, a GS, I think it was a GS 10 or GS 9 position, opened up in finance, which was basically my job. And I was, for all intents and purposes, it was just a formality for me to do what needed to be done. I applied for the position, and a part of it was to have an EKG, was a part of the requirements. And so after I completed my EKG, the nurse came in and said, the doctor wants to speak with you. And I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so the doctor comes in and they're like, are you feeling okay? And I'm like, yeah. Do you have shortness of breath when you work out or when you do stairs or any strenuous activity? I'm like, no. That is when I found out that I have mitral valve prolapse.
Wow.
The valves of my heart don't, close completely. But in essence, that disqualified me from being able to get the position, that full-time position.
Wow.
Yeah. And so one of the things I explored was I had to have had this when I was in the military. And what the final result from that was, you may have, but we didn't discover it while you were active duty, so you're on your own. And so I stayed in the Guard, working just my, typical 1 week weekend a month, 2 weeks a year for another, because I had been in the position maybe a year when that opportunity presented itself. And so I stayed in the Guard, continued with the Guard. But what that did was them finding out that I had that condition. There was a code put on my file, basically. So if I ended my enlistment in any way in the Guard, I was ineligible to join any branch of the military again. I was disqualified, basically. So, and I knew that, but I relocated one of the times that I left Houston. I moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I was working to get the transfer from Texas Guard to the Guard close to Fort Lauderdale. And the paperwork, the process was just so tedious and was not going anywhere. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave the Guard here and then join there, not
Thinking,
connecting the dots that no ma'am, no ma'am. So yeah, so I left the Guard in 1999, Ellington Field here, and just could not get back in the military. But subsequently, the great thing about my military service is that it created opportunities that I do not feel I would have had if I had not been an honorably discharged military member. And so, for example, in Florida, I got a position where I was supporting 2 Citicorp sites that supported Latin America as a voice coordinator. And I think a big part of that was for me to the fact that I had worked for MCI WorldCom here, but not in that capacity. And I think my military service kind of enhanced when I applied for the position, and they had confidence in me being able to perform the job or do the best, do it to the best of my ability. I stayed in Florida for 2 years and then came back to Houston.
like this vortex that keeps pulling you back.
Bringing me back. Yes.
And back
Just,
again.
yeah. So, worked in corporate America for a long time. I worked for Harris County in 2 different capacities, worked in the family law courts. And in 2010, I had the concept of being an entrepreneur had always been something I was just, it appealed to me. But I just didn't know what to do or how to do it, etc. And so a lot of circumstances prompted me to leave corporate America in 2010. And for a time, I started my own business as a mediation coordinator, where I was the liaison between family law judges that had retired, and they were the mediator. So I was the liaison between the family law attorney and the family law judges and family law attorneys that wanted to mediate with them, or the pro se parties that wanted to mediate with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2012, I got my real estate license, decided, okay, I'm gonna get into real estate because I like to try new things. I like to do new things. Change is good for me. Got my real estate license in 2012 and have been in real estate ever since. A lot of things with regard to my designation and my specializations, the certified divorce real estate expert, and the with VA Rep, Veterans Association of Real Estate Professionals. Unfortunately, both of those focuses are education is key for both of those. And unfortunately, VA Rep, Veterans Association of Real Estate Professionals, our primary goal is VA loan education. And I found out early in my real estate career that wrong information was being dispersed about the VA loan. Veterans were being dissuaded from using their earned benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that when I was introduced to the organization, and learned, started educating myself and learning, it was like, okay, this is something that we need to get the education to real estate professionals in turn the military and veteran community, so that we as military members and veterans can make informed decisions um, about whether or not we want to use that benefit. um, I can honestly say that once again, that my time in service, I like to say that I am who I am because of and despite what I've been through,
Exactly.
what I've experienced,
Exactly.
And so there's a lot that occurred. There's a lot that occurs,
It continues.
especially with women,
Mhm.
in
Good point. Let
sorry.
me interject right there. We
Yeah.
hear from a lot of male veterans about what they went through when they came back and the traumas that they felt and whatever. We don't hear much about women.
Yeah.
What was that like?
First and foremost, as a woman in the military, at least for me, um, there were certain good and bad, benefits and issues, because we were not viewed as, I don't think we were viewed as able to hold our own with the men.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're in a position that even the position I had, there were, because keep in mind, I worked at the fitness center. I wore shorts to work. Primarily, most of the people that came, military members that came to the fitness center, military members and, you know, um, family, spouses, etc., were males. And so my even civilian colleagues were primarily males. When I was deployed, excuse me, there were two, from my recollection, there were two women that were deployed into the area of conflict when I went in my position,
Mm-hmm.
morale, welfare, recreation. And within a few months, I was the only one. There's trying to put it, there's unfair some of the perceptions of what women can or cannot do, what women should and should not do, in a military setting is not good, but you the military teaches us, part of the training you receive. That's a part, even basic training. You go through basic training and you're supposed to suck it up.
Correct.
You suck it up, right? And with the mindset that, we're already looked down on in a way, not as good as the man, we some of us absorb and take and suck up things that transpire, things that are said, things that, we shouldn't. We should talk about it. We should disclose. We should but in the environment, it's not it's not encouraged. It's not encouraged at all.
Correct.
Or it wasn't when I was in,
It's still not.
right? And so a lot of things happen that should not happen. But we suck it up because we're well aware that if we speak up, we're looking for preferential treatment, or we asked for it, or, different things like that.
Yes.
And so we internalize it and just push through. We push through. And I think, and this is just going to women in general, we take on a lot of things and just push through, just in general. But in the military setting, it's reinforced. Push through, just suck it up, keep going, and then not to be judged by our male counterparts or even some female counterparts. We just do what needs to be done and keep going. So there's a lot, and there's a lot that's not discussed among, not even with each other, female veterans.
Correct.
There's a lot that's not discussed. And one of the bad things about that is that later on, if it is brought up or if it is disclosed, we're doubted. We're doubted because we didn't say anything at the time, or let's look at your records to see if there's any indication that happened. Everyone is not the same. Everyone does not handle stress or most things the same. So being put in a position or being told in numerous ways that what you're saying is not believed, or there's no proof, so it didn't happen. It's frustrating.
Absolutely.
It's frustrating. And that causes, other females see that and they're like, well, it doesn't make sense to say anything. It doesn't make sense.
That's right. It's it's wrong. They know it's wrong.
Yes.
But they don't have to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to change from what I'm understanding through legislation, but it's that way in corporate America. Did you see it in corporate America also?
Yes. Yes. In corporate America, it's the same thing. We're held to a different standard as women.
Yep.
And men can do certain things, or in some instances less, and they're rewarded. But we're expected to do more, and get paid less, but also the recognition is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I was working with a Fortune 50 level company, there was a lot of young women that were coming up, and then they would hit the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what came into play was that mentoring, because you have the after hours, sitting at the bar, talking, learning, going to play golf, and for the women, they would tell me, I can't go to the bar and have the conversation, even though it's with profession, because the implication is going to be sexual, or the implication is going to be I'm sleeping my way to the top, or whatever the case may happen to be, right?
Yes.
And so there was this artificial ceiling that got put into place, and I saw a lot of very, very good women leave
Yeah.
and do what you did. You go start your own business.
Yeah.
Tell us about that transition. I've had enough. I'm going to go do it. I'm going to do my own thing.
The one of the things that bothered me to this day is being micromanaged.
Yes.
I do not like being micromanaged. But another thing I saw, work ethic. Work ethic is something that I still have, but in corporate America, it was frustrating to see for me to do my job above and beyond, and then have other individuals come in and do the bare minimum, and be rewarded for it.
Mhm.
And so, but you're still being micromanaged, but for some reason they're not being micromanaged. They're being told, okay, you need to do blah, blah, blah. And maybe it's the work ethic that was there that enhanced it for me. But it was like, okay, if I might as well go and do on my own, where I am the boss of me.
Correct.
That independence, for me being the boss of me, my work ethic is going to, for it to be, my product will be indication
Correct.
of my work ethic, not somebody's opinion, or that kind of stuff. And so it was scary, just the
Yeah, it
concept,
is.
because leaving corporate America, the main thing about corporate America to this day that I miss is that steady paycheck.
Yes.
That steady paycheck that you're going to get that. As long as you're employed, you're doing you're getting that steady paycheck. So it was very scary, going out on my own, and some days, even now, it's like, it's that steady paycheck. But I don't know if I can say this on here.
Yes, you can.
My mindset about going back to corporate America, just the thought gives me anxiety.
Mhm.
And so I joke with people and say, and occasionally I'll ask people, y'all hiring? And then I tell them, but I need a job where I make my own hours and have top pay. That's why I'll come back to corporate America. But I joke and say, I'll have my portable table in my trunk and get on it before I go back to corporate America. I don't know if you understand that concept.
Yeah, I do.
But
Yeah, I do. It's interesting, Carlene, because both of us who've started businesses have been there, and in their days, you take 2 steps forward and 4 steps backwards, and that check is not coming, and it's like, oh, what do I do now? But this is where the military thing comes in. You
yes,
figure it out,
yes.
and you reach out for help. So, successful as you are, what do you tell a woman veteran who is in that position? What do you say to them?
First and foremost, have confidence in your abilities. We as military women, the things we've been through, some have been through more than others, But overall, the things that we have been through, reinforces the fact that we are able to go out on our own, because the tools that we were taught in the military, we just have to figure out how to utilize them in the civilian world. And those tools in the civilian world are not common. The misconception is, you're competing with all these other people, but the tools, the work ethic, the actual ability to think outside the box, figure it out, all of those things is not common, or not as common as you would think. And so when you go to start your own business, and you're not necessarily going to start doing what it is that you are going to end up doing, that you're going to be passionate about, but explore the things that you like to do. Explore the things that you excel at. And the freedom that comes with that, knowing that you're basically you control your destiny. That's scary, but that's empowering also.
Yes, it is.
It's but as women, we have intuition that can take us and allows us, some of us like to look or try to see other people's perspective. That is a great thing with regard to your business, because then you're able to identify different people that may be drawn to whatever it is you choose to do, but also people that will be drawn to you because of who and how you are. Embrace your power. Embrace your power. I love the term, you are a badass, because it's you look at yourself in the mirror. When it gets like you're just like, look at yourself in the mirror and say, you are a badass, because as a woman that made it through your military service, you truly are a badass.
Absolutely. You absolutely are. Carlene, how can people get a hold of you?
My website is cjservices.us, cjservices.us. I can be reached. I have numerous Facebook, it's Carlene Johnson. LinkedIn, it's Carlene Johnson, I think.
Yeah,
yes,
yes.
or yeah. On Instagram, it's CJ of CJ Services. Additionally, it's Premier Divorce Listings, which I focus on divorce listings. I was the first in Houston with a certified divorce real estate expert designation. And that there are approximately, I think, 180 of us in the country. And so that too is, I think, my upbringing in military service, to compartmentalize and be able to be firm, plays a huge role in me being able to work with divorcing parties.
I do not envy that position at all. Having been divorced, it usually gets pretty intense.
Yes, very intense.
Yes. So I admire your ability to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because it was tough. It was tough. Well, we are just about out of time, Carlene. I want to thank you, number one. This was a tremendous input that you had, getting the perspective from a woman veteran and the way it was, particularly a woman of color veteran, to see what the challenges you faced and how you came out. And as you said, I am going to do this, and you made it happen. And that's so impressive. So impressive. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you can see more of Carlene's story and several other veterans. And there was a number of women veterans who wrote for this book, which was, I was a little surprised that there were so many, but you're going to get just a very wonderful perspective of what it's like, the challenges you face, and then how you do the transformation. And the transformation is a very difficult thing from the military world to the civilian world. And for anybody who's put service to others before self, if you work in a nonprofit, if you do volunteer work, or whatever it is, these are the people you need to know. These are the people who have done this. Now, you can see the show on Roku TV, or you can see it on my YouTube channel, and it's very simple. It's Frank Zaccari. I keep everything simple. I'll also send a link to Carlene, and she'll post it everywhere she puts out her information. If you use the YouTube, if you see it on YouTube, please subscribe. Let me leave you with this. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Carlene showed us where many of those rocks are. Join us again next week for another life-altering event. And March 29, get this book. Thank you, Carlene.
Thank you. Thank you.